Is it doing it? Yes, it is. All right. So this is Araya on Santos, and I've been wanting to do an interview with Santos for quite a while, and we did do one which wasn't recorded. So there we go. We're going to start all over again. Um, so I'd like you to introduce yourself. I know you've probably introduced yourselves a million times, but this is going to go on your channel and possibly mine. So it's just, many people are really looking forward to that as well in Glastonbury on my end as well. So yeah, just introduce yourself again, and that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Araya. So what I do is syncretism mostly, incorporates astrology. Astrology is a very important part of what I do, but it's very holistic. It branches out into all areas of life: philosophy, yoga, meditation, health, diet, sexuality, etc. So everything is ancient wisdom that I teach. It's not really anything new, because the ancients really, they had all the answers. They knew when it came to health and spirituality, they had it right, So modern times have been subverted. The knowledge is very, very rare. And so I'm just bringing people's attention to the truth that has always been and always will be. It's timeless, and we can learn it and trust it, and it will bring great results to the life. Great results.
I'm sure everything you say completely vibrate with, because I feel very similar as well. Obviously, you are who you are, and I am who I am. We all, due to our astrological charts, we approach things in a different way, and so on and so forth. I have my own nuts on bolts approach to things. Like I'm very much of a fireball. But everything that you talked about, I've been doing as well myself since very young. I became an astrologer as well at the age of 21 or so. But being Gemini rising, I'm a bit of a butterfly, so I go from one subject to the other. And like you, I don't know if you were like this as a child, but I was a very avid reader as a child. I was already reading when I was about 4, little bits, but by the time I was 5, I was a very avid reader already, and it became difficult for my parents to keep up with me on my reading habits, so I had to keep going to the library once or twice a week. And yeah, so what I'd like to do today is talk about, because I know you have a lot of knowledge on that, and this is a subject I have a lot of interest in as well, which I too have practiced. I've been single for a while, so not anymore, but I love anything to do with white tantra on the retaining of the seed. And the other subject that I really have at heart is the truth. In particular, the Bible. I love all the holy books, but in particular the Bible, how it actually is really a book of health, and how to raise your kundalini, or rather your seed, back to your pineal gland. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about that, and tell us in as much detail as you can how, according to the Bible and according to, well, reality, according to truth, how our body function and how we are meant to keep it in harmony with the rest of nature, and on how we can become enlightened and even eternal beings.
Yeah. Well, sexuality is a big part of the ascension process. Now, this is why young boys are sent to seminaries to learn about semen.
Yes.
And semen retention, and how to harness and use this force, this electrical, beautiful energy. And so it's a great divine gift. And from the seminaries came 2 different schools: the left-hand path and the right-hand path. And then there's also a middle option as well. But what happened was that in the left-hand path, they were teaching two polarities, celibacy and promiscuity. Anything goes. But there was also the development of the celibacy school, because the controllers know that through celibacy you can control your people, your priests and ministers. You can have certain control over them. And both of these options are wrong, you see, and this is what causes people to be very, very harmful in their habits when it comes to sexuality. They're either promiscuous or celibate. And both of these are two polarities that are not for ascension, the ascension process. This is a descension, the left-hand process. So the right-hand process is purity. And it's about harvesting that energy. And it's about sexuality as well. This is what a lot of people don't realize. They think that the right-hand path is about celibacy and abstaining, because somehow this is a virtue. No, it's not. Both of these on the left are wrong, and too many people are causing harm to themselves by engaging in them. The ones who practice celibacy do not enable the Christic charisma, or chrism, same word, to rise and be utilized properly. It stays stagnant. And so they don't grow. Sure, they get a lot of benefits, they get peace of mind, tranquility, and a certain measure of happiness, because they're not indulging in desires and sense gratification, but they're still not ascending. You need sex on the right-hand path, purity, sexuality, and pure devotion to the path. So, and on the other hand, the promiscuity is causing harm as well, simply because people are mixing DNA. You see, when you so much as kiss another individual, in the saliva is the whole download of that person's ancestry, all of it. Demons, hormones, blood, parasites, DNA, past toxic partners with their parasites in them, which you are receiving through the saliva and the memory in the saliva of each individual. To speak of the sacred fluids, semen. Let's not even contemplate how much of a download. You see, what you're doing is now you're reprogramming your whole torus field, your whole ancestral significance and nature. You are now downloading from someone else, and you are degrading your soul. And so these polyamorous, promiscuous people are changing all the time. And what they're downloading is all the disease, all the venereal disease of the individual, because it's in the saliva. Everyone has venereal disease from their ancestors. It never goes away. So we all carry that herpes, energy, let's call it energy. So, and what you're doing is you're transferring in the saliva, and you're mixing in their aura fields. And if those people are flesh eaters and left-hand pathers and not ascending, then you can rest assured that harm will come to that individual. So both of those polarities we need to avoid. And we need to learn about sacred sex. That's all we have to do. Learn about sacred sex, holy sex, where you make a pure and lasting edifice of ascension between two loving partners. And those are soulmates or twins. So it can be done. And after 12 years of white tantra, there is a 13th cranial nerve which is generated. And this one is called the Christ nerve. And he is the Christ with his 12 other cranial nerves. And now the Christ is enthroned. The Christ is now enthroned, and the individual becomes illuminated and free, has access to all the knowledge of the universe, the Akashic records. And once this is granted, this great gift, development of the nervous system, the individual now is transformed, metamorphosized. And the individual has transmuted the electrical sense-based sex rather than the super sense white tantric sex. He has left that behind. He has conquered the dragon. He's in full control of his vessel and has restored all of his powers. And our powers are many. Our powers, foremostly, are to manifest what we wish to in the world and what we wish for our own lives. And the more we practice the right-hand path and purity, the more those powers are restored. Because it's like a battery. When you recharge a battery, once it's fully charged, it has power. But when it gets weak and debilitated through bad behavior and the left-hand path, very dangerous. Now your torus, torso, tora, aura field is depleted, and there are holes in them, and it's not holy, it's not whole anymore. And so parasites come in and entities. And I have personally experienced this. I've had probably about 10 years of torture through what people would call targeting, Morgellons, Lyme's, lupus symptoms. I don't know whether I had any of those. I don't know, but they're all turning up. Fibromyalgia is another one. They're all turning up, and people are sharing similar symptoms, etc.
Yeah.
Well,
I have had that.
well, yeah, it's everywhere. And I eliminated that torture by eliminating the parasites with animal dewormer, fenbenzidole, and ivermectin. So there is a protocol which you can look up on the internet. I'm not the teacher of it. I just do what I was taught, and I'm not going to be able to give advice to anybody. But that's how I got that's how I got rid of the parasites, and how I got rid of the entities is by going to shamanic healers. And they did a lot of work on me and a lot of clearing. And this is also vital. You have to clear your field. You have to make it pure again, like like the Virgin. So the Virgin is a motif in Scripture, which is someone who keeps the way. And the foolish virgin is the one who strays from the way, only to bring dishonor to the gods. And so they are the ones who burn their oil, and they don't have any spare oil in their receptacles. Now the oil is Christ, and the virgin, foolish virgin, is denoting someone who is sacrilegious and blasphemous towards the chrism, and someone who is disrespecting it. and hence they have no oil in their receptacles, and they're waiting for their bridegroom, their savior. So the 5 wise virgins, they've got oil. It's burning bright. Their light is burning from the oil that they have. And they have extra reserve, just in case the bridegroom comes late, because sometimes he's tardy. And you see, the 5 foolish virgins, they found that they didn't bring enough oil in their receptacles, and the hour got late. And so they said, well, we need to go and get some more oil. Otherwise, we're going to miss out on the alchemical marriage, the 12-year white tantric glorification of the self. And so they went off. They went astray because they were not wise and pure. And so when the bridegroom came, they were not there. They were not ready. It was not their time. And the bridegroom receives the wise virgins and says, come in to be married to the Lamb, the marriage of the Lamb, because the Lamb is Aries.
Yeah.
And when you get married at the violet crown chakra, that's the highest marriage. You see, you have to reach the highest heaven. Head is heaven heaved up. Hell is heel, where your heel is at the bottom. So when you come to the Lamb and you burst that chakra through sexuality, and you can do it through meditation and other ways. But sexual alchemy is the most sure way to do it.
So if you don't have a partner, what would you suggest?
Well, you have to put out to the universe to get a good partner. You know, you just have to wait for your time. And in the meantime, you can still do this. You know, you don't have to ignore your sexuality. Remember that it's a fine line between pleasure and pain. And it's a fine line between white tantra and grey tantra. And you have to be diligent and disciplined, very disciplined, because the temptation will be to fall into lust. You know, it's harder. And so there still is that opportunity for the individual to exercise sexual energy. You know, it doesn't have to be doesn't have to simulate physical contact with a partner, but sexuality is with you all day long. You know, it's connected to bliss and love.
Yeah.
But more so to bliss. So when you're smiling and you're happy, it's like you're having an orgasm. It's blissful.
Yeah.
That's why we want orgasms. And so the orgasm is very healthy. But it shouldn't be exploded. It shouldn't be ejaculated. It needs to be imploded.
Yeah.
And so the reason is because that fluid is converted. It's reused. And it needs to go through a process of restoration, because the seminal fluids, which you learn about in the seminary, come from the claustrum. The claustrum is a small closet under the cerebrum. It's a cloister, hence it's called claustrum. But it's also called Santa or Holy Claustrum, the Holy Claustrum, Santa Claus in the North Pole. And he goes down the chimney and brings gifts down to the sacral chakra, which is the sexual chakra. And those gifts are what's called the manna from heaven. And it's the same manna that Jesus said, unless you lift up the Son of Man, manna, unless you lift up this oil again to restore it back to where it came from, you will not succeed in ascending. And so it's a process. It's a lifelong process. Some people get there quickly. Some people slowly. But that's what we're here for.
Mm.
And so the chrism, the cerebrospinal fluids, come from the claustrum. And they water, so to speak, the garden, which is the Garden of Eden, your body. So you have both blood and water, and nervous fluids, described in Scripture as sacred rivers. Two of the sacred rivers in the Garden of Eden. The others are urine, which is a holy substance, and saliva, which is to do with salvation, and salts. Our body's made up of salts, magnesium, sodium, etc. So when it descends, the manna from heaven, it arrives at the third ventricle, and there it gets differentiated and diluted in potency. And the pineal gland polarizes it positively, and the pituitary body polarizes it negatively, and they send that oil now, one down the Pingala. Pineal gland is associated with the Pingala, pituitary with the Ida. So that's the negative Kundalini energy. And so now this is where duality begins, in the third ventricle, in the third heaven, creation, duality. And so now the oil descends further to the thyroid and gets further differentiated and diluted. Thymus, adrenals, pancreas, etc. And finally does its 7 glandular system. And then the oils are now located in the generative system of the male and the female. And these oils are sacred. You see, the more you eliminate these oils from your body, the faster the body dries up and dies, and spiritually as well. The soul gets depleted and it's missing. And the individuals get very confused, and life is all a blur now. Because they have no purpose. They don't know who they are. They're lost, like ships without rudders, like the mist in the air. All right? So as the fluid descends and gets differentiated, it is known that through sexuality and saving the seed, not spreading the seed, those are the seeds of a new creation. And the new creation will be the Christ in you, the higher mind, where you leave the carnal mind and its associated pleasures behind. And so it's a process that requires devotion and determination and endurance, great qualities, which will keep one steadfast and healthy. And so by learning how to breathe, the male and the female, they are able to generate an energy field together. And breathing and making use of certain muscles. At the perineum, at the bottom of the torso, there are muscles there which you can clench, and the same muscles you use to hold your continence. And so you can feel them, and during the day, you can just give them a bit of squeeze, because from there comes all your power, all of it.
You're talking about like the bandhas that we use in yoga, the Mula Bandha and the Java Bandha, or the different bandhas that you can use in yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in many Eastern practices, like in Tai Chi, etc., it is recommended always to squeeze and be in contact, be in touch with those muscles, because those muscles will block the externalizing of the secretion of the fluids, the christic fluids, and it will enable it to rise through the nervous system and ascend and go into the solar plexus, just above the sacral chakra. And from the solar plexus, every month, there is a process, there is a cycle. And seed from the semen, which is retained, is utilized to be the seed, a psychophysical seed, a germ, which is planted in the solar plexus every month when the moon transits the individual's so-called sun sign or star sign. So if you're a Taurian or Geminian, that's because the sun is in Gemini or Taurus, respectively. So when you track the moon and you know which sign it is, every 60 hours she transits one sign. That's 2.5 days. So when she goes through, she's the generator. And what happens is, this happens to be a personal new moon, because when the moon transits your sun, when it's known in astrology that when the sun and the moon are together, it's a new moon. It starts a new cycle. So you see, the cycle is personal now. It's individualized. It's not the everyday world's new moon that happens for the macrocosm. It's yours. It's your personal new moon, and it generates a cycle in the body, which is proceeding to continue in its course up the 33 vertebrae of the spinal column, and to be crucified at the age of 33, like Jesus, in the cranium at the atlas vertebrae, which is making my head pivot. That's the final of the degrees, the 33 degrees of masonry, which must be reached internally as you climb Jacob's ladder. And from the sacral plexus, if the individual is living a moderate life and a pure life, no drugs, no alcohol, no anger, no promiscuity, no ejaculations, then this seed will grow. And this is why Christ is always depicted in the manger with soft linen enveloping the beautiful, soft baby child, because it's just depicting the fact that this newborn seed in you, which has just been generated, is very delicate. And if the body is toxic and acidic, it will burn the outer protection of this germ, and it will destroy it. And this is why this beautiful Christic seed needs to be protected and generated. And the individual must be devoted to this process and never abandon this process. In doing so, they can remove years of advancement and lifetimes of advancements of work in past lives. They can wipe years and years off their evolution. You know, it can be very harmful. So it's something that we need to be devoted to and endure. So when the fluid begins rising from the solar plexus, it enters the heart and it opens up the heart of the individual so that they can now proceed continue their process with love. Now, instead of just lust. So that's why it's important to protect at least the seed for at least until you reach the heart. That might take 3 months, 3 cycles, might be 1. You might be already there. Or it might take 20 and 10s or even 100s to reach the heart. But it shouldn't be that difficult if you're pure and really devoted and your intent is toward ascending. You'll reach the heart and then you'll find the bliss that will unite you and your twin, properly to continue the work that needs to be done. And then from there, it proceeds to the throat chakra where more expression occurs, more action occurs, because now you're reaching the blue chakra, which is the sky, the heavens, and you're reaching the heavens. You're going to go into head heaven, where you have the indigo, and then finally violet, which is the last of the vibrating colors that the human eye can perceive. After that, it's white light. So our destiny is to continue from there, from the throat chakra into the third eye. Now, what happens then is, once the oil gets there, is that more consciousness comes to the individuals. They begin to be aware of their deeper role now in the holy matrimony, the perfect matrimony, and their it's like a reward for all their hard work, and also like an encouragement to go to the end and reach the crown chakra. And once this happens, there's a beautiful process in the fornix that happens in the cranium. In the fornix, there are 2 lateral pillars, and they are the pillars of Hercules. And once the hero arrives at these pillars, like Samson, he pulls down the pillars. In other words, he goes through the world of duality, and there's an electrical signal or pulse that is sent to the back of the fornix. And that's after the crucifixion, after the oil has come to the middle of the medulla oblongata, the top of it, where the vagus nerve, the pneumogastric nervous system, crosses at the top There's a crossing where it crosses over at the top of the oblongata. That's the crucifixion. That's the point where you become awakened and the electrical signal occurs in the fornix. After a dormant period of 3 days of darkness, that's the days when Jesus is in the tomb. The Christ first gets crucified, then he goes into a tomb for 3 days. Well, that symbolizes your death in the world. And now when the angels came to roll the stone off the tomb, they saw inside the grave, the tomb, there was Jesus was transcendentalized. He was not physical anymore. It was a white being, and the angels couldn't touch him. And so what this symbolizes is that in the fornix, which is a furnace, and there's a constellation which is Fornax, which is in Aries as well, and it's the fornix, and it's the oven. It's like the ribosomes that make the proteins. It's the oven fornix where the Christ is transcendentalized after the crucifixion. And then what happens is all the dormant brain cells are reactivated in the individual. They have a halo, holy halo, and they can express their full Christ consciousness, their higher mind. No longer are they dictated by the carnal mind, which tells them to be promiscuous, celibate, famous, rich, and all these stories which take us away from the only thing that eventually will mean anything of value, the process of ascension in the future. It's the only thing. It's the only thing that will satisfy everybody, because then they are doing the work. They are growing. They are coming into their mind and realizing their godliness, that we are all part of God, children of God. You see, we are God with difference.
Yeah.
We're not just God.
Yeah.
You can't say, I am God, because this is a half-truth.
Yeah.
We are God with difference.
Yeah.
We are individualized. And so that individuality, not personality, the lower ego, individuality, the higher ego, this is what we want to attain.
Yeah.
We want to inherit the glory of our Father's kingdom and everything that will be restored to us in terms of power and magic that we can perform.
Yeah.
That's why you do this process, to restore your power so that you can practice true magic, true white magic, and have
That is
the life that you wish to live.
the highest magic.
Finally.
Yes. It's the
Yeah.
highest magic. And I was going to ask you again because I was trying to remember. I think I heard you in one of the videos because everything I study is very similar, almost exactly the same as what you do. But you mentioned something about, which obviously that the number 12 is a very important number. Apart from the 12 astrological signs, which are also the 12 tribes of Israel, there was the 12 labors of Hercules. And I think you mentioned something like number 12 has to do with the different, well, signs, but it has to do with the body, the actual physical body. And then the number 7 has to do with the different glands, of course, in the body. And then number 3 obviously has to do with like the neutral, positive, and negative. And number 1 is the soul, isn't it? And interestingly enough, soul is also the soles of your feet. And the name for the angel of earth is Sandalphon, which means sandals, which obviously sandals is what you wear on your feet. So I can't remember exactly what you said, but I wanted you to recapitulate what you said about, like, I think you said it was something like number 12 has to do with that the 12 different systems in the body or something. On 7 is the 7 glandular systems. And then you mentioned number 3 on 1 as well, if you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, for sure. So 12 is the universal mental number. 7 is the universal physical number. 7, which means to sever,
Yeah.
is, you see when you put white light through a prism, it severs that white light into 7 refracted colors, different colors. So you get the 7 specializations of the creative force of the universe. There are 7 types of electricity. This is electricity. Magnetism would probably be more associated with the number 12 because a cycle has 12 separate 30-degree segments of energy in them, according to astrology. You see, there are 12 signs, there are 12 months.
Yeah.
There are, in fact, 12 seasons. There are 12 cranial nerves. There are 12 nerves in the solar plexus. There are 12 ribs on each side in the thoracic cage. 4 is Arthur and his 12 knights. Jesus with his 12 disciples. They are the discs of your vertebrae and the 12 ribs on each side, which make 24. And so we have Thor is the Taurus field, the thoracic cage. It's the Taurus field of your torso. And your torso is made of carbon, but it's carbon 12.
Yeah.
The ether, the polyhedra for the ether, the quintessence, or the fifth element, is the dodecahedron. The dodecahedron is the number 12.
Yeah.
And it is the master ruler of all the other polyhedra. And therefore, the universe is a 12ness. Magnetism expresses itself through a 12ness, mental energy, spiritual energy. The 7, which is polarized light, 7 has to do with, if you look at the rainbow, you will see that the rainbow shows you the 7 colors of creation. They are the 7 frequencies which make this solid state universe possible. They are 7 different frequencies of electricity. Magnetism is a pulse, and it radiates, like when you throw a pebble in a pond. You have a radiation wave which is forever expanding.
Mm.
So magnitude, which is 10 billion times more powerful than electricity, according to Faraday and Maxwell, it is the pulsating, radiating force of the universe, which produces an effect called the wave. And the wave is electrical. They say it's electromagnetic, which is true, but it's electrical because magnetism radiates, doesn't vibrate.
Yeah. Carry on. I'm just
It's
going to
the
put the
pulse.
light on. I'm going to put my light on, but carry on, carry on.
It's going to, it puts, it's the pulse wave universe. It's not a particle wave universe. Particles do not exist.
Yeah.
Thank you, Walter Russell. So it pulsates, magnetism, and that radiation is radial. So it goes in all directions. It's the standing wave. doesn't vibrate, it's longitudinal. And as it propagates through the medium, whether it's ether, fire, air, water, or earth, it makes a ripple. I mean, it makes a wave. That ripple generates a wave because it encounters friction, resistance, and that resistance is Satan, is the resistor, Saturn, because Saturn is responsible for the solid world. He's the god of this world, Satan. And in astrology, he's the god of Earth, planet of Earth, what is solid. Because he's the resistor. Ohms is Om.
On Saturn restricts as well, on limits. So that's why Saturn rules the bones on the skin as well, because he's the beginning on the end, isn't it? Saturn is basically, he probably rules ice as well, doesn't it? Like the ice, the solid water.
No.
No?
Oh, ice. Yeah, ice.
Yeah, solid water. And he limits on, like Jupiter is expansion, yeah, and then Saturn is retraction. It stops things. Yeah.
Yeah. Saturn is cold and dry. Jupiter is hot and moist. They are the four universal humors. And each planet has a passive and an active humor. Hot, cold are active. Dry and moist are passive. And each planet sends either a hot, cold, dry, or moist, or a combination of the two, one active and one passive. They all do as a frequency to the Earth to produce the theatre, which is the Earth.
Yeah.
Earth is an anagram for theatre. They are the same word. So the producers of this theatre are the gods of this world, the cosmocrators. And they help us in the ascension process. You see, they are enabling enough intelligence and consciousness to enter our field so that we become conscious of this calling to be chosen, to be of the 144,000 of the pure ones who reach the Lamb of God and who marry the Lamb. So these people come to this awareness by the grace of the planets, what we call planets. They are just luminaries.
Luminaries, yeah.
I use the word planet, even though, it's very...
I try not to, but it's difficult because everybody only understands that word. But whenever I talk to people like you or whatever, I try to use the word star or fixed stars, wandering stars or luminaries. Yeah. I think they changed the vocabulary on purpose because they knew that if they called them planets up there and then they called the Earth a planet as well, we would all think that what was up there was the same as down here. So people would believe, well, if what we can see in the sky is solid, then that means that we're solid, then that must be solid up there as well. Yeah. They're very clever, don't they? They're very clever what they do with words, changing our vocabulary to their agenda.
For sure. So how we do this process with the aid of the planets is quite simple. The moon is the bottom chakra. And once you polarize invert the moon's vice to a virtue, then you proceed on to the second chakra, which is Mercury. Then Venus, the sun is in the heart, Mars is in the throat chakra, Jupiter in the pineal gland, and Saturn, Kronos, the crown chakra. So what you do is invert their, as Manly P. Hall puts it, he says, as we descend into carnal bodies, the planets give us their bodies. They give us their vestments. And the earth, with her minerals, gives us finally a physical body. And the planets prepare the sevenfold nature of our spiritual body through descending through the planets as we incarnate on earth. And when you descend, you are receiving conditions. There are 7 conditions. And they will be polarized, leaning toward the left, the negative, to the vice, unless good practices are begun early in life. So when we begin on this path, what we do is we invert the energy. So the moon will be related to emotions and mental captivity. So we release that. We release the mental captivity and the emotions. And we let them go. We let go the sense-based ones, the thrills, the excitement, the promiscuity, etc., of the moon's polarity. The moon is sin in Babylonia. So the sinners are the ones who go down to the bottom chakra all the time. That's their sole interest, just to satisfy that bottom in the red world of passions, red blood, Satan. And so they don't proceed from there because they haven't inverted. Unless they invert that vice at the moon, at the bottom chakra, can't get up to the second one. And then you invert that one. And Mercury would be to invert duality into more sort of a hermaphrodite unified individual. It's not anything to do with the transgender way of but it's to be centered. Then Venus in the solar plexus is a process of inverting the passions, power, to abuse your power, because that's where your power comes from, the solar plexus. And so when you have power, some people have a lot of sex magnet, that's power. And so when they go out in the public, they get all this attention. And what do they do with it? Do they harness that and keep it in its place, or do they fall for seduction and use their seductive powers and abuse their powers? That's called an abuse of power. So that energy needs to be utilized correctly. It's nothing wrong with being beautifully sexually attractive. We all want to be attractive to our partners.
Of course.
We don't want to be, we don't want to look, unappealing. We want to be nice.
Yeah.
So, and so you'll get more of that if you don't abuse your power. You'll get more of that sexual attractiveness, So then you come to the heart, and of course, then you invert the heart, which would be not to let the heart be deceived by the passions of the lower chakras and to fall, but to open the door of the heart to see the 3 chakras above on the other side and to reach them. And then the throat chakra would be where to use your voice for good and your creativity for good. And then your pineal gland, your third eye, you invert this from seeing through the left by seeing through the right. Right is right. which means to use your intuition, to go to your God mind, your higher mind, to use your mind correctly, you know. And then the crown chakra, of course, which is where you are crowned with the laurels. You see those beautiful laurels that you would get, or the crown of thorns that Jesus had. These are all kronas. You know, the native Indians used to wear their plumed headdress with eagle feathers. That symbolizes that they had their crown chakra opened, because that's their crown. And they were never allowed to let that headdress touch the ground.
Wow.
If it touched the ground, they would lose their holiness.
Wow.
They must keep it elevated all the time. When the Indian wears his plumed headdress, and you can only wear it when you arrived, you see.
I've got one.
Some people think
here.
they've.
I've got one of those that somebody made for me, but I haven't worn it yet. Well, I think I wore it once, but that was that. But this is so beautiful what you're saying. I just absolutely love it. And it's actually interesting, like, for example, when you said that Mercury is the has to be inverted. Yes, is the second chakra, and which is interesting because generally speaking, because it's a sex chakra, I'd be associated with Mars, but Mars is actually in the throat, and so it's kind of like reverse there, which is like really interesting. Well, for me, it's interesting because I've got Mars in Gemini, so it's very interesting. Yeah, but carry on. Yeah.
Well, it's not just Mercury, although he is the domicile ruler of that chakra. There are other planets. Venus is sexual. The sun is sexual. The sun is the phallic. You know, Saturn is sexual, because it is said that the only reason why Saturn began time and creation, because Chronos is time, is because of sex.
I love
creation.
Saturn. I love Saturn.
And
Saturn to me is the wise man of the zodiac. Is the wise man. Is the wisest you can get. Is Saturn.
Yeah.
You know.
And Jupiter. Jupiter is known for his many, romantic expressions. Juno, his partner. You know, the gods are always interchanging when they transit. See, when Jupiter transits Venus, it's called a conjugation. Yeah, it's called a What? I'm getting my conjugation. So you've got squares, oppositions, sextiles, and conjugation, right?
You've got conjunctions. Conjunctions, yeah. I know.
Now,
I thought you were trying to say something else. I thought you were trying to say, because you were saying something about Jupiter transiting Taurus, I think. Was that we were talking about?
So no, when Jupiter transits Venus, it's a conjunction.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Conjunction.
Yes.
Conjunction is related. Conjunction is related to the word conjugation.
Right.
So astrology is all about the gods having sex, intermingling their energies in conjunctions, squares, sextiles. Now, why would a sextile? Well, because it has to do with 60 degrees, but being sex, but 6 is sex in Latin.
Yeah.
And so a sextile is a Venetian aspect.
Oh, yeah.
And she is sexy. A trine is Jupiterian, hot and moist. A square is Saturnian, Martian, hot and dry. An opposition is Saturnian, cold and dry. And these are planets having intercourse, called conjunctions and aspects, squares, right, which are conjugations. And when you have conjugal relationships, you are conjuncting, transiting. So So you see how the gods are sexual. That's why Jupiter is always raping Europa, you see, because that energy of redshift, blue shift, that electrical energy is polarized, hence creating a field of energy called sex. It creates an entity of its own, a whole body, the sexual body. You know, inside of us we have a sexual body, and it needs to be transmuted. It needs to be perfected, as Manly P. Hall teaches. The difference between animals and humans is the development of the nervous system. Animals only have 5 chakras. Humans have 7 because their nervous system is more developed. And it's a developed nervous system which creates consciousness. Hence, we must have a healthy nervous system. And the worst way to deplete your nervous system is by ejaculating, because that's the fluid. You are now depleted. It's a state of depletion, and you have to now restore that energy, renew it. And it's a whole process. You know, this is a sacred work. We need to take life seriously, not ourselves, but life. Life is a precious gift, and we can lose it. We can lose our souls with whole.
Well, this is why I was going to ask you something about that, because I was thinking about that the other day, and I was thinking, you know how okay, so like we can practice what you've just been talking about, which is the right pure way of, well, it's the only way to save ourselves, really, completely. There's no Jesus out there to save us. Jesus is in us, and this is how we're going to save ourselves. And so my next point came to, I was thinking about how, for example, a lot of people in the elite, world and so on. I mean, that's just my view. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but that's just my view. And to me, because we, as you said earlier, we are all God within, but we all, it's like the one in the many and the many in the one. We are all God, but we a different face of God. Like God has different faces, and we're just like one face of God. Each one of us is a different face of God. But with the elite, for example, they are committing horrendous crimes, like against children, from, well, not just having sex with them, but also killing them, on eating them, on all that kind of stuff. I was thinking about the fact that the reason why they're harvesting organs and so on, they will do everything they can to live as long as they can, and even become eternal, not even in heaven, but here on earth, because they know that after all the shit they've done to a lot of people here on earth, if they die, the price that they're going to pay in their own death, they're going to be facing their own demons or their own God, whatever their God is. And they will either be in hell for a very, very long time until they have seen everything that they've done on repair certain things, or maybe completely get deleted. So this is why, I mean, this is just me thinking that, but I'm just saying the reason why they're harvesting all these organs and all that, that they just don't want to die, because they know that once they die, they'll probably never come back here again. So that's the only way for them to, after what they've done, they'll do anything not to die. I mean, I don't know, that was just me thinking, because the only way, because like you and I, like we could survive a long time, and about practicing what you've just talked about, yeah, we can become eternal and so on. But with what they've done to humanity, they would be completely deleted. So they can't afford to die, literally, because if they die, that's it for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. They know how it works. They know that we just either ascend or descend. And what they're trying to do is set up a system where they can just reuse bodies and never have to be sent anywhere. They want to choose where they go, because they've been descending and descending and descending for eons, and they don't like it. But they don't change their course. They still serve demonic lust. They serve demonic passions, And so they don't repent. The light of the Christ is shining brightly, but they're not bathing in it. You know, they're hiding in the darkness. They're living secret lives. You know, they don't even want some of their friends to know what, you know, what they're doing. That's why they hide it, and they can get in underground worlds where, you know, people are doing activities, dark activities in the darkness, in groups. You know, they get together and have satanic groups. Some have sacrifices, some have orgies, some have blasphemous ejaculatory, you know, encounters, and all kinds of things that will lead them ultimately to the wrong path. Well, they're on the wrong path, but to the wrong result. You know, they
Wow.
think they're going to inheriting some kind of excellence, you know, and some kind of good reward for their due diligence, and it's
It's
going to
not.
be sad. You know, that's Jesus said, in that day they will be weeping and gnashing their teeth. They'll
Yeah.
be just gnashing, grinding their teeth, you know, in pain and anguish, knowing that it's like, you know, missing an a flight. You know, if you really have a destination that you have to be to, and you miss a flight, you kind of,
Yeah.
oh, what could have been? I missed out on my son's wedding. I missed out on my, you know, lover's birthday. I missed, who knows, you know, you could miss out on the career of your life, or whatever, you know, just
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
missing. And this is what, you know, these people are queue jumpers. They they get on the syncretism path, they like it, and then all of a sudden they look around and they get distracted and
Mm.
allured and seduced, you see.
Yeah.
And so they you know, they fail to stay on the path and produce fruit.
And they also like
They
I also feel like, you know, the Freemasonic black and white squares, which I was talking to Solly about actually the other day. This is, you know, this is what the elite actually try and do. They don't want us to be balanced, and so they're trying to create this world, but it's all black and white. So you got a Satanist on one side in the dark, using only their left brain, blood ritual, or can't look at the light, can only do evil, can only see evil. And then you've got the other side of the coin, which is like the more like new age people, which are like, can only look at the light, can't see any evil, and can only see the good in everybody, which can be quite detrimental too, because hell, the road to hell, is paved with very good intention, as we know. So I think they try this. This is what the Freemasons are doing. Well, they use circumcision as well, and a lot of other things, to split our minds and to try and create this world of black and white. So none of us are ever really balanced, living in the middle of our. Well, you will never know the truth if you only live from your right brain, or if you only live from your left brain. You have to use both. You have to know both worlds in order to know the truth. So this is all about it's all about balance, on which the sign of Aries, actually, which you are, is also about balance, because both Aries and Libra belong to you know, the equinox. So of course it's all about being balanced, you know, as far as I'm concerned. It's not about good. There is good or evil, but it's not about doing good or evil, because you can, by wanting to do good, you might end up doing evil, or vice versa. So it's about knowing both your left and right brain, on being centered. So any one time you only do what's right. Exactly. It's always about doing what's right in your life, you know, and not just for yourself, but for the greater good as well. I'm a great believer in that, you know. I don't believe in just sort of looking after myself in my own little life, on only caring about myself, and hoarding things. You know, I'm very much about you know, spreading knowledge, as like you do, you know, as much as possible. And you know, I don't know, I have a plan. I'd like to try and build my own community, you know, and do it a bit like the Pasha Mama did, which is that they would never have more than 150 people per community, because they realized that above, I believe actually 144 is the magic number, really, but above that number, none of us can really get to know more than 150 people properly in our lifetimes. And this is when they realized that if there was more than 150 people per community, the community would start breaking down and infighting would start happening. So they would basically split the community in half, and they wouldn't be that far from one another. But they also went one step further. The Amish did the same in America as well. But the only problem with the Amish is the Amish had kind of fallen from grace a little bit as well, because the one thing they didn't do, which the Pachamama do, when the boys in their community would reach maturity at 12 years old, they would be sent away to another community. It doesn't matter where, but whether it's 50 miles away, 30 miles away, 100 miles away. So the mothers effectively would lose their sons when their sons would reach 12 years old. When I say lose, they wouldn't really lose them. They could still go and visit them at, whenever. And they might also gain another boy of that age that they would then have to look after. So it would teach the women to detach and to let go of their sons, basically. But the other thing it would do, of course, is avoid inbreeding in the community. So all the women would stay, but the boys would leave. And I've always found that quite fascinating. And I'd like to try and reproduce that on Earth again everywhere, try and have little communities everywhere where there's never more than, like, let's say 100 people, or then split the community in half. And everybody's in harmony. And then you send your boys away, which teaches the women to detach, but they can still go on visit their son. And then they may get another boy coming their way that they will have to love as much as they love their own sons that they gave birth to. So this is one of the things I have a lot of interest in at the moment as well. I don't know how I'm going to accomplish it, but when there's a will, there's a way, and I usually get my way. But anyway, yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't remember what we're talking about.
We were talking about well, we finished off with the seven seals. Saturn was the last one, the top of the head, and then we talked about conjunctions. We were talking about conjunctions and conjugation, and then we were talking about how the elite on the Satanists basically will end up gnashing their teeth. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, I was I was talking about people who get the awakening. It comes to them, and they start on the path of syncretism, but then they look around. Like the wife of Lot. She turned around. What that means is she turned around and looked downward at the bottom chakras to serve them. She wasn't prepared to let go of the world of lust. And so she turned into a pillar of salt. What that shows is that she didn't advance. So you don't look around. You have blinkers on, and you put on your complete armor of spiritual warfare to protect yourself from people who will bring bad influences, bad DNA memory into your life through sexual encounters. They will destroy your soul. They're like parasites. You see, when you go on the left-hand path, you meet people that come into your life that will absolutely eat your soul. They won't give to your soul because they're not pathers. And they will eat your soul, and then you become soulless. And then you're lost. You're lost. It's very, very hard to get back. It's very hard. You become neurotic, psychotic, nervous. Your nervous system, well, it's depleted through sexuality, There's no energy, there's no life force, there's no magnetism anymore. There's no pulse. It's all vibration. It's all lust and addictions. Vice, a circle, a nasty circle, which is hard to get out of. It's very hard. It's a struggle. I struggled with it. I struggled for many years.
Yeah, me too.
Until I reached the middle of 2012, where I decided I can't continue the ejaculatory sex. Every time I had an ejaculation, I felt depleted.
Yeah.
Instantly. I wanted to sleep. I got nervous, aggravated, angry, stressed, depressed, cloudy in the head, heavy heart, weak limbs. It had all of these effects and more. And I'd been studying White Tantra for 5 years, and I still hadn't mastered it. That's how powerful the explosion orgasm is.
Yeah.
Because it brings so much of our true nature, our blissful nature, into our souls for a split second. That's
Yeah.
why with White Tantra, you can control the flow of the orgasm so that you don't explode it instantly and just it's gone. You have no control. You have to control it. You have to utilize it. You have to direct it, you see? And then it becomes something. But you see, when you're having ejaculatory sex and disrespecting blasphemously the Holy Spirit by abusing it, you are debilitating yours and your partner's nervous system and aging and inviting infestations into your aura. Now it's not holy anymore. It's not a holy temple. It's a blasphemous temple, and it's been defiled and desecrated. When you desecrate a temple, you urinate on the walls. You defecate in the most holy. That's what the soldiers would do, you know. And that was sacrilegious. That was desecrating a temple, and then they would raise it to the ground because it's been ruined. It's been defiled. That's why once you get from 2012, you know, I have practiced pure White Tantra, where I implode my orgasms.
Yeah.
And my orgasms happen from the very beginning, because this is why people are incontinent. Ejaculators are incontinent because they're not experiencing an orgasm at the start. They get it at the end. So
Yes.
they want to get there quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, with White, from the very beginning, because you've been building up your prism, what happens is every time you have sex, you start from where you finish off.
Yes. Yes. That's true. I know, because I've been doing that myself. So yeah.
So you come in with power of
Yeah.
continence, right? And so you're having a constant orgasm.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
You can't wait for it, because then you have expectations, and expectations will
You.
disturb the process of making love, not having sex, making
Yeah.
love,
Yeah.
where you are in control of your dragon, where you're not going to let it just explode and vanish and, you know, no continence, you know, no power. So what you do then is you're not having these outrageous expressions of, you know, when ejaculators express their orgasm, it's like they're melting, you know, there's blah, 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 they go wobbly and everything, because everything's just on, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It's so you never get that, but what you get is bliss.
Yeah. Complete bliss.
So and it's an orgasm, because that's what an orgasm is. It's bliss, right? So now what the young man is able to do and the old man. It's and women especially, but this is more focused on the male. When he is in control, then the woman knows that she doesn't have an incontinent boy on her hands who's going to explode any second. So she's not worried, oh, I might get pregnant here with this guy. He's going for it. And she's not going to worry as well if she's on contraceptives that he's going to come too quickly, because she knows that he has power.
Yeah.
That he's done some work.
Yeah, exactly.
And only in this way can he be ready for the great work, because the female is dependent on the male to activate her ascension process sexually.
Yeah.
The male dependent on the female in the partnership. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
So it can't be done individually, and it needs to be done correctly by two loving partners, because if they stay away from each other and they abstain and become celibate, for instance, they will deprive each other of their reward. They will deprive each other of their growth. So we are enablers to our partners, and our partners are enablers and facilitators to us. So we need to keep, conscious, awake, and aware of this, and be awake. Do not fall asleep, because if we're on the path and we fall asleep, right? A guard is no good if he falls asleep, and if caught sleeping, a guard will be fired. If you're a fire guard and you're looking out for fires, and it's fire season, and you've been sleeping, oh boy, it's going to be a lot of fires, and you're going to be responsible for a lot of damage. And so we can't fall asleep. We can't be distracted. We can't turn to the left and see what's going on and what's the world doing. What's everybody else doing?
Yeah.
Somehow now what the world is doing and what the exciting people out there are doing is interesting us, because it's taking us away from everlasting glory. And you don't want to get there thinking, you're going to reach some place. You'll reach it when you reach it. Don't be too sure of yourself, but be confident that if you do good deeds, you will get a good reward according to your deeds.
Yeah.
And your power will be restored according to your works.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we can round it off.
I was gonna show you just a few books, because first of all, I know that you like this guy, and I've been into this guy for a very long time. It's called Samuel Invo. Samuel, Invo, and this is a really amazing book. I've had this book for maybe about 2012. I got that. So it's called the Tarot and Kabbalah. And it's the most beautiful book on the tarot I have ever seen. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing book. If you can get hold of a copy, it's a tremendous book. And as you know, Samuel Invo is an amazing guy. Of course, I've got this, which I haven't read yet, which you've suggested, The Light of Egypt. I haven't read that yet. I haven't read this one yet either, The Manly People, The Secret Teachings. This one, I read about half of it when I was about 23, but I never finished it. And then I just bought a new copy, which is Dante, which is the Divine Comedy. I've always wanted to read Dante. Of course, I also have the Kybalion, which is an amazing book. And then something a little bit different. I've got the Tales from 1001 Night, which is a book I read when I was very young, like about 13, which I think is amazing. Then I've got Ovid Metamorphosis. It's just mind-blowing book as well. This book, beautiful book, Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained by John Milton. Then this is one of my favorite books. It's called The Tower of Pooh. Just beautiful. If you haven't read The Tower of Pooh, it's a beautiful little book. I highly suggest it for anyone going starting their spiritual path. This is the sweetest little book, The Tower of Pooh. Then I wanted to read about Norse mythology, so I've got that as well. Then one that is going to be, I could send you that book because a friend of mine has lots of copies. So if you were interested, this is called The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, and it's all about what's it called again? Parthenogenesis, how women can get themselves pregnant even without a male, and so on. So I've got that. I've got Le Mystère des Cathédrales, of course, but this is a new copy because I've lost my English one. And then I've got the Tetrabiblos, of course. And then I've got the Iliad and the Odyssey, which I read that when I was about 8 or 9. And then this book is completely falling apart. It's called The Gnostic Circle by Patricia Bachelet, amazing book. And then a book that I was talking to you about earlier, which is called The Secret Power of Music. And a very interesting thing it talks about, especially in Germany and all around, which was, I think, Prussia at the time, the monks in all the cathedrals and the abbeys who kept an arm going. Okay, and so I'm just going to finish up. So they would keep an arm going, and just to keep the peace on the land, they would keep an arm going permanently. The monks would be singing an arm to keep the harmony going on the land for about 20 miles radius. So anyway, that's all I wanted to do right at the end of that. And yeah, I just really highly suggest you get this book. I think you'll like it. It's about the power of music, but very, very interesting book, which I'm going to reread again. So there you go. And if you have any books yourself that you'd like to suggest that, before you go that I haven't shown, just you can mention any books that you want to people.
Yeah, just the one by George Carey, God, Man,
I love his
the
books.
Word Made Flesh. Yeah.
I've got that too, yeah.
That will help. That will
I've
help.
got all George Carey's books as well, all of them, yeah. Really, really amazing that you're the one that put me, I think 2 years ago, I bought the Zodiac and the Source of Salvation. I bought that 2 or 3 years ago. And then recently I bought the Word Made Flesh, or whatever it's called, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, that was great. And then yeah, I mean, we could spend another 3 hours talking for sure. So I'm so happy that it's recorded this time, it looks like, and so you'll have that on the Skype. And yeah, and hopefully maybe in the next few weeks or months at some point, I'd like to talk to you about something else, maybe the flat earth or something. We could go into the flat earth or other things as well.
Right.
But I think we've done quite well, and maybe more about the Bible as well next time, more about like Genesis and the fact that none of it is real, like they're not real people. It has all to do with association in our bodies and so on. So I think this is the next time I'd like to talk more about that Genesis in the Bible and the 12 tribes of Israel. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Soraya.
All right, Santos.
Good.
Thank you so
I've
much.
got to fly.
That's
I've got to
right.
fly. They're leaving. We're going to the shops. All right.
All
See you,
right.
sister.
Okay, lots of love.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Lots of love.